So today's video isn't quite in sequence again, and that's because the video that I should be doing today is the triangle method, but I've asked Lee for some content to go alongside of that, and it won't be available until next weekend. So that will be next week. I don't think that will affect very many of you, but if for some reason you are just learning to fly cast and you are going through this course in sequence that I've done it as of today, and over the next week, then you have to go and look at the triangle method first and work on that. But I don't think that will apply to very many of you. The next thing is I'm actually reversing. I'm going to putting this video in before, at the beginning of the next one. So I go from the triangle method to the pick up and lay down, and I don't do that, and I haven't done that for a very long time now. I think it's a mistake. So instead of what I do is I'm going to do these 3 drills. Now you might go, well, why do I need drills? Drills are, drills are really important. It's like you're not going to become a good fly caster by just going fishing. That doesn't happen. You will become okay. You're not going to get to a very high level, but you could be good enough for some types of fly fishing for sure. Lots of people go, for me included, I went for 15 years of fly fishing, never having had a lesson. But if you want to get to that higher level, then you're going to need to train, and you're going to need to train away from the fish. You go to a field, you can go somewhere where there aren't any fish. There's a few bits of water I can think of like that. So you need to sort of get yourself away from that. But even then, it's no good just casting. You need to have exercises and drills in order to develop your cast, and that's what these are about. And so these 3 drills that I'm going to do now, while I use them with beginners, like straight after the triangle method, I go to these 3 exercises, and actually on the same day. They're not just beginners drills. They're actually, I think these 3 exercises are your key warm-up drills. They're good for any level. I practice them. So if you're an intermediate caster, these 3 drills are your cornerstone. Now I posted 3 drills back in October, I think it was, when I was in the UK. 3 drills and a chainsaw, and they're not even the 3 drills I use now. So it's it's pretty fluid and it's constantly changing. And I've even changed a little bit how I look at those now too. 2 are the same. So let's get into that, and let's talk about these drills that you should be using. Now, the first thing to understand is there's got to be a lot of variety in this, a lot of variability. I think this is key to training, because you've got to understand we're not trying to build the perfect cast. There is no such thing as one cast that suits everything. That's not what we're doing in fly fishing. Sometimes we're having to skim the fly low to get underneath trees. Sometimes we've got a headwind. Sometimes, there's a structure over here, and we've only got one position to cast in. Even when we have all the options, there's not even a perfect cast. If you want to cast 40 feet, there are lots of different techniques. And you look at coaching over the years, if you look at the well-known instructors, some of them cast radically different from each other, but it all works. Where it starts to break down is as we reach the extreme distances in casting sport. I think that's when for me anyway, that's when it sort of, you see a lot of similar patterns involved. But even there are certainly differences too. So you've got to understand that you're not looking. I don't nowadays anyway teach you to cast in a certain manner, because you've got to be able to cast in all manners. You've got to have the ability. It's like tennis. You don't know what you've got to hit the ball from all sorts of different positions, and you've got to hit them to taking into account of where the player is, and you hit it over there. And we have this. We have to be able to do this in Flycasting. We might be waiting to go here, and there's a fish. We were out of position. You have to be able to make that shot, for example. So we have to have this variable stroke, and it has to be highly variable. And we have to incorporate that in our training, which is what these 3 exercises are really about. And furthermore, the root of this is we want to be in the position where we are changing the length of line that we have outside the rod tip with all of these 3 exercises, constantly changing, not every cast, but we don't want to be working with a fixed length of line. And to start with, I would suggest working with about 6 feet of fly line outside the rod tip plus leader. So about 15 feet, about 9 or a 10 foot leader there. So the first drill is all planes. I'm actually going to change that slightly, and I'm going to call it all planes and all positions. And by that I mean we want to get narrow loops going backwards and forwards. It's going to be quite a narrow casting arc, or just come from the triangle method. The V that we make here, these 2 sides of the triangle are quite tight together. This angle change that the rod tip moves through is quite narrow. And I'm on the side there, backwards and forwards, letting the loop straighten out. And then I'm going to come up and I'm going to go through all the different planes. Up to the vertical, over to the left, over to this side here. Okay. Now this is one of the challenges, I think, is sometimes when people come from this side here and then they come up to the vertical, sometimes it's very difficult to watch the back cast, and all of a sudden this angle change increases and then the loops open up. So you've got 2 cues. One is you can watch your back cast by standing sort of side on and looking up, and you can see it up there. The other is you can look at this V, this angle change that you're making, and you can just maintain that same angle change as you're coming over. It should be about the same. And then add 6 feet of line. Okay, now we've got 12 feet of fly line out there, and I'm going to do the same thing. Okay. Now, I want to go to all positions, because while you see I've got quite a built-in stroke here, which I like, it didn't just happen. And there are times when you can't be even in this position. There are times when you might be wading up to your beard here, and then you might have to cast up here. So you've got all these different positions you can get into, and I think this is important for a couple of reasons. One is it breaks this movement that you might have inbuilt, or whatever it is. It gets you into all these different sort of positions here, into this movement, different angles, even casting across, across the body here, up here. No problems with any of this. It's the same drill, right? All we're doing here is we're trying to maintain these loops here from any position. And 6 feet of line. Now I'm on, should be 18, but I've mismeasured and it's a bit more than that, but that's okay. Here we go, all these different angles. If you want to be a bit more formal about it, 90 degrees, 60 degrees, 30 degrees vertical, minus 30, minus 60, minus 90, okay. But also try all this different stuff. Try different ways of moving it around, different positions, and then lengthen it. And then you want to play around with that, and you can get to a point where, let's get out to about 30 feet of fly line here. You're going to notice that something has to change, and one of the issues is, because we've always been talking about this angle change, you can end up in a situation where a student, could be yourself, thinks that the fly cast is just about rotating the rod. But with a longer length of line, it's not just about making this rotation, it's about moving the hand more as well, increasing stroke length. And while there are a few ways of doing that, looking at that, I think generally, for a lot of casts, not always, but generally we would sort of try to drag the rod, and then put the rotation in at the end, both backwards and forwards with that longer line. But make sure that when you're doing this, and it will help you, you know, with this longer line, you need to move this hand more, but you want to be in this position that you can do it all different sides, maybe even with a straight arm or just with body rotation. I have no problems with that. I really want you to explore all the possibilities that your body gives you. Don't get caught in this trap that there's only one way of doing it. So that's the first drill, all different planes and different positions. Second drill. It's not that bright, I can take these off now. Second drill. I just need a drink though. Second drill is really important. Second drill, let's go back to the 6 feet of fly line. Second drill is changing the loop shape. And there's two reasons this is important. Firstly, there are times when you do need to change the loop shape. You do need more open loops for lots of reasons. Maybe even just to collapse a cuss, it's a technique. Bigger flies, poppers, that sort of thing. So being able to open the loop is important in a controlled way. But also, it gives you the adjustment to be able to fix problems too. If you can go from narrow to medium to wide, to medium to narrow, and you can make those adjustments, then you can build those adjustments into your central nervous system, because that's really what we're trying to do here. We don't want you thinking about fly casting. We just want it to just happen. All right. So I'm going to start off here with 6 feet of fly line. Narrow loops, put them on the side here. You might be able to see them. I don't know, the light's a bit diffused today. And then I'm going to gradually increase this angle change and make the loops bigger. And now I've got loops that are bigger than me. And then I'm going to narrow it down again and make it narrow again. And I'm going to do that in a different plane now. I'm going to make them narrow. I'm going to make them wider. I'm going to make them very wide, and then I'm going to make them narrower again. And there are lots of ways of doing that. One way you can do it is with your wrist, but you could even do it with your body, if you're flexible like I am. Do like this. I have absolutely no objection to doing this. And you know, just playing around with this stuff is super important for you, right? And you can do that indoors. You can, some people say, "Oh, where do I practice?" You know, you can take just the rod tip and you can cast indoors with that and just play around with loops. If you live in a house, unlike me. And you can combine that one with the first drill we had. So you can do this for all the different planes. I can go narrow here, and I can make them wider. I can make them very wide. I can make them narrow again, etc., etc. Different planes, and then I can do it with different lengths of line. I would gradually increase, say 6 feet at a time, but I'll just skip through some of that and get a longer length of line out there because I want to show you again that longer stroke. So I'm getting the narrow loops in here, and you need to be able to watch them while you're doing it, while you're learning this. So you're going to stand side on here, and then I'm going to gradually increase the size of those loops. And now I'm going to make them really big. Bang. Very important. Very important. I'm going to give you the third drill, and then I'm going to tell you how to sort of incorporate these into your training. Third drill is probably the best drill, and it's one I've been using for a bit more than a year now. And it's one of Mark Surtees. Mentioned him, I think, in the first video, a friend of mine. And it's become, I've realized how, by experiment, I mean, when somebody tells me about a drill, I just test it on students and see what happens. And this has just been a brilliant one. And it's a little bit unusual. You may not be expecting this. So I'm going to start with a relatively short length of line again in the air. But this drill is then going for a walk around your casting field. And you might go, well, why the hell would I do that? And all different angles as well. You can come over the other side while walking around, and however you want to walk. And I think I'm going to tell you a bit about why this works. I think and let me first give you a story about it. So I gave this to one of the guys I was coaching for CI in the States, and it was just before July the 4th, and they had a fly fishing parade. Well, not a fly fishing parade, they had a parade, and they had a fly fishing float. And so I told him about this drill, and he went in front of the float, walked through the town. This is in Ohio, just casting for like 3 hours, 4 hours in front of this, getting people's shoes as he's going along. And it made a huge difference to him. Huge difference. And I think one of the reasons this is so effective is because it's distracting. That's the first thing. You know, you're not thinking about, oh, how is my arm moving? How am I moving the rod? Because, you know, you are kind of wondering about, you know, am I going to fall down a rabbit hole? Am I going to step off the end of the boat? One reason. So it's but I think it's more than that. I think what it does is because when you walk, it's autonomous. You know, we've learned to walk. When you're walking, you're not conscious of how you're moving your feet or how you're moving your legs or where your weight is. You're just doing it. And I think, I don't know how the human brain really works, but I start to think that this autonomous movement that we're using when walking is transferring, or it's helping us transfer that to our casting stroke. Because when the big fish appears, you don't want to be thinking about how you're moving the rod. You just want to make it happen. And so this sort of thing here, and you're going to get some funny looks casting in the field in a way. Why not just, make them really stare at you? Okay, so honestly, those 3 drills here with variety of fly lines, these are the key ones. So we've got all planes and I think all positions. Just throwing that out there. We've got loop control from narrow to medium to wide, and then we've got this slightly crazy walking around the field, and then you want to merge them all together. So the question is, how much time do you spend doing this? And how often do you do this? And obviously this is going to be a little bit down to how much time you can spend doing this. You know, if you've got 10 children and are working 80 hours a week, then you're going to have, unless you're putting your children out to work, you're going to have less time to work yourself on this. So it's less free time. But if you're retired or living in the jungle, you could probably spend quite a lot of time. But I would suggest this. I would rather you do it little and often than trying to fit it all together. Instead of trying to do an hour on a Saturday morning or 2 hours on a Saturday morning, you'd be better off doing 10 or 15-minute sessions, preferably every day or certainly 5 days a week. If you can find a way of doing that, lunchtime at work, just have a rod set up. If you've got a garden, you have the rod set up ready to go, so you don't have to put it all together. I used to have them. I got a log cabin in Hungary. I had a couple of nails in the wall, and I just stuck the rod there, and I could go casting. Here it's even easier. We've got the rod here sometimes, and I just come up and cast. So little and often is really important. It's any time, any chance you get that you can just be doing what I'm doing now, and casting and changing it and flipping it around. It just makes it faster to move, so that it just becomes, part of you. You're not having to work on it, think about it. And those 3 drills there are very good for this. So that's the first thing. And then, so if you're looking at this, if you've come through this in chronological order, and you've gone from the triangle and you've got to these 3 drills now you have 2 options. One is you can just stay there and go and practice. The other is, and I would normally do it in one of my classes, because I normally don't see the student again like two or even 4 weeks later. I would also include the roll cast and probably the double haul. So I would take somebody in that first session all the way through to all the stuff we're doing up to double haul. But if you're working on your own here and you're working on this, I would probably kind of think about stopping here and go back. So you've got those 3 drills, you've got the waves under the rod tip, you've got the triangle method, putting the line down, and then you've got these 3 drills. So you've got all the planes, you've got loop shapes, and you've got walking around. So that's how I would recommend it. And I would recommend doing that 3 to 4 or 5 hours. Even just 2-3 hours, it's going to make a huge difference to you. But when you've done it for 15, 20 hours, you are going to be a very different fly caster. Totally different. Just on the strength of just that. Those 3 exercises, those 3 drills plus the triangle and the waves, you combine all of that. Okay, it's not including hauling, but you include all of that, and you are going to become a far better fly caster than you currently are, and you are going to go in 2, 3, even 6 weeks of doing this. You are going to be way ahead of somebody who has spent many years and never done this, just went fishing. And if you're the guy who's been fishing for 15 to 50 years and never had a lesson, these are the ones you want. All right, so hopefully that helps. What else was I going to say? I can add something in there. So I think about something I could sort of add to that to maybe give it a bit more perspective. And so I think, what we're trying to do at this stage is to expand movement so that you can explore all these different ways of moving your body. And I think this is really important. I mean, I think this is how we learn. This is very different from how a lot of people will teach fly casting. It's very different how I taught it for the first 10, 15 years. And I've sort of graduated towards that, and I've now, over the last maybe 4 years, I've sort of flipped right over to this go and play and see what happens mentality, and it's all good. Even making mistakes is good because you learn to fix them. I don't believe in this ingraining the wrong muscle memory. So quite often you hear like a student somebody will come for a lesson because they don't want to ingrain the wrong habits. But you can see here, I'm allowing you to do everything. And the key is the loops, really. And it's also a good way of getting rid of that muscle memory that some people will bring because of stuff they've heard. They've heard not to use the wrist, or they've heard the elbow on the shelf, or they've heard, I don't know, to pull a concrete block to pull. So you've fish jumping out. So you've heard these, you've heard all of these things, and you've come in with a very restricted movement. And so I often say, well, okay, you're doing this. Elbow can be a focus point. So instead of bringing your elbow to here, bring it to here. See how that happens. Bring it to here. What happens then? Just trying to try everything to break the mold that casters are in is one aspect to this. The other aspect is you're fishing. You're going to be in a situation where your default cast, whatever that was, is not going to work because of structure or bankside, or the fish suddenly appears in a different place. So you need to have this variability of movement. Later on, for sure, when we start to get, when we have specific requirements like distance or dealing with the wind or trying to just become more accurate, be more efficient, then we're going to be much more focused on how you utilize your body and how you move your body and how you position it, the pattern that you use, how you drive different parts of the body. I think that's very important. But we can only do that after we've done this, in my opinion. I think you need this base before we start trying to chisel you down. So that's my philosophy. All right, enjoy that. Next week we'll go back one to the triangle method. Looking forward to that. Can't wait to see Lee's video.